Okay. Enough of the nursing home jokes. I know people been beating them jokes into the ground. Look, man, the Clippers, man, I'm not here to talk about the trades. We know been through that. It's a couple days removed from that. Everybody's having an opinion, though, on what they feel like this Clippers team could end up, though. Like, far as, people already putting them in the finals. Probably because they got a lot of, notable names. A lot of people saying, look, it's going to be an old team. They going to break down. They ain't going to make it far. First round is the most they'll go. I see a lot of that. Now, what I want to kind of talk about is kind of like the X's and O's or just kind of like the structure of the team or how I feel like the only way this team will work. And it's going to call for a lot of sacrificing, drastic changes, and players to play in ways that they might have never played before as far as what to focus on. So let's jump right into it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the comments. We appreciate it all, so don't forget to do that. But let's get into the first point here. The overall point of this video, I feel like, and the theme and the team that I want to kind of model the Clippers to at least try to be, because I feel like with the roster they have, this will be the best way for them to be successful, is the Spurs. And I'm not talking about the Spurs of, the 2000s. I'm talking about that 2013, 2014 Spurs, the one that went up against the Heat and had a record-breaking, 3-point barrage, and I think margin-wise too, they were going crazy. But that is the Spurs team that I think they should model themselves are. That Spurs team that was in that decade, because the guys that they have here on this team, for them to be successful, everyone needs to feel involved. Unfortunately, they got guys here where, look, if they not getting into the offensive action, it's hard for them to lock in on other facets of the game. And for, the Clippers team that has had a really good reputation last year being a really good defensive team, you need all 5 parts connected. So I'm looking at you, Bradley Beal. I'm looking at you. John Collins, I'm looking at you. We can't have, if you give those guys games where these guys are going to take 5 shots, 6 shots, it's going to be hard to get them to lock in on the other end. I mean, we watched Bill do it in Phoenix. I mean, we watched them, we watched John Collins throughout his career as well have spurts where they're just not locked in. These guys are going to need to at least have the ball spread around, though, for this team to be what it needs to be. Every time Harden goes to a new team, people talk about changing Harden. Like, he cannot play this way, dribble. That is not going to be the best way for the teams to win. I think this stop is really going to confirm that. I think this is a stop he really needs to, in the structure of the team, where he really needs to change that. Because I don't see a way for him to dribble, give everybody their necessary shots, and everybody to be involved. I do think this team will do a lot better with passing to the next shot. Like, I feel like a lot of these guys don't do the open pass, like the next pass to get an open shot. They're used to getting the ball and taking their shots. Kawhi getting the ball, he methodical, taking the shot. Bradley Beal, he getting the ball, he taking the shot. Harden, he getting that step back, he taking the shot. He's more willing to pass than everybody else. Collins, he don't touch the ball a lot, so when he getting it, he taking the shot. The extra pass is going to be vital for this team to be the best they could be. Harden cannot dribble with this team. It has to be 4 or 5 passes of possession, because that's really when they're going to debilitate, and demoralize the other defense. Like, I got to worry about Bill. I got to worry about Collins sneaking in for alley-oop or a little mid-range. I got to worry about Kawhi, and he's efficient all across the floor. Then I got to worry about Harden. It's so many things to worry about, and whoever they plug in, I got to worry about Bogdanovich. Also, if they try to do a heavy shooter lineup, like, there's a lot of moving parts. And then I got Chris Paul, who can also facilitate, get guys open. That will be the strength of this team. If you guys look at the Clippers from an assist standpoint, they've ranked towards the bottom in the past couple of years, even with Harden. I feel like Chris Paul is going to help ascend, because I feel like at least with 20 minutes a game, he can at least get them to the point where they add a couple 5 or 6 more assists, and that will put them closer to the top of the league. that is going to be vital. I think it'll create more three-point opportunities. They also are kind of low in three-point attempts as well. They're kind of at the bottom. I think that will create more of that too as well. This team is going to need to rely on the perimeter. You got to get these guys healthy for the playoffs. Not having them going to the rack and attacking the paint as much could possibly save their legs. A lot of jump shooting teams are able to kind of, save their legs. And, you take a lot of punishment in the paint. It's a soft error compared to what other errors were, but you still could damage yourself by landing wrong and guy slide his foot under you. It's so many other ways to just, knock knees with somebody. It's so many other ways. I'm not saying avoid the paint, but I think being a more perimeter-focused team will help these guys. Also, outside of that too as well, they're going to need to not have anybody on this team play more than 30 minutes. And if you do pick one person to do that, it got to be, I don't even know, maybe Bill, because Bill's the youngest, right? Because you need to get these guys to the finish line. Harden did a really good job last year keeping these guys competitive, getting everybody involved, and getting them to a winning record before Kawhi came back. Harden did a really good job of that. His efficiency went down, but he was able to still affect the game in so many different ways, almost rivaling his peak years in Houston. But when it got down to the later part of the years, he broke down. His body wasn't moving the same. He wasn't as efficient. You just seen he wasn't able to string along a lot of good games like he used to at the beginning of the year. Kawhi, even though he stayed healthy relatively the rest of the year, you still worry. Like, that's not enough sample size for me to say, all right, give him 40 minutes. So you got to gradually get these guys there. Brook Lopez, he's an older guy. Like, you got to gradually get these guys there. Zubac, he should be somebody else that plays a lot of minutes too, 30 minutes or more. He was the all-star of the team, if you ask me, outside of Harden. I know Norman Powell also can get a piece of the pie there too as well, but Zubac was just consistent every single night. 15 and 15. Like, I seen those stat lines too often for him. 3-4 blocks every now and then. Like, he was an all-star on both levels on the floor for them as far as like his role on that team. So those guys are going to need to play more minutes. The Zubacs of the world, the Bogdanoviches of the world, the Chris Dunns of the world. You cannot have CP, Harden, Kawhi, and these guys, and even Bill at this point. I take that back. Bill has been getting injured so much he's out every 5 games with something, a back, a hamstring, a leg, everything, an ear. Like, God, every boy's out all the damn time. He was missing games like clockwork for Phoenix. So at this point, you might need to rest him too. But you need to adopt that Spurs model where nobody's playing significant heavy minutes. These will keep these guys fresh, so when it gets later into this postseason run that they planning on making, these guys can be at peak performance. You also need to do with this team too as well. No one on this team is a lockdown defender. Their best defender is probably Chris Dunn at this point. Kawhi is still respectable, but I feel like now the leg injuries catch up a little bit. Nobody's really a lockdown defender in the league, but I feel like he can get got more than he used to. Harden, we know he ain't. Chris Paul's older. He's not anymore. So Bill, he never was. So I think with this team here, they're going to need to play more connected defense. Nobody should. I don't see them doing a lot of man with this squad. It just wouldn't really fit. I see a lot of heavy zone. I don't know whether it's a 2-3, 3-2. I do see a lot of heavy zone. I don't even see a lot of switching for real. I feel like with this team, they're going to play a lot of connected defense. Well, I do see probably more switches with this team. This team is going to be heavy on the switch. I see a lot. I think that's what they're going to rely on most. Because, again, they don't have any lockdown defenders, but they just need to have guys in their spots. Be into their spots. Rotations need to be on point. Because, again, you're asking guys who never really committed on that end. They might have a game, Bill, when he only has 5 shots, 6 shots, 7 shots, and he's going to need to be the best defender on the floor because of who he has to guard on the opposite end. So for this team to work, they need to buy in defensively. Guys who never really focused on that are going to need to do that. I'm pretty sure you're going to have overlapping lineups where maybe Paul and Harden share the floor. Harden is going to need to play a lot of motion. Barely Bill does a lot of motion himself. Kawhi does a little bit of motion here and there, but I feel like he will need to increase that along with Harden, you're going to have to move at some point because you stagnate the offense if you don't do that, right? So I feel like he is going to be somebody that's going to need to move. I'm not talking about turning to Steph or Clay, running off of screens, but for this team to be where they need to be, I feel like it's going to be a lot of pass, cut, pass, go. Zubac might become more of a Jokic type of role, not all the time, but I feel like him being at the top of the key and guys cutting or even back screens being set, him being crucial to be able to hit the right guy is going to be crucial for this offense. Because, again, I don't think the James Harden way is going to be the best for this squad. It works well for Zubac. Got him career numbers. But I've seen, like, when it comes to him and Kawhi, sometimes it's not as fluent. Even in the playoffs, it wasn't as fluent between who gets the ball, how the offense looks, and it just doesn't look as fluent. And I do think when you add Bill into the equation, it makes it a little bit harder. So I feel like they're going to do a lot of pass, cut, pass, go, back screen type of situation with this squad. But you got to cut the minutes. Nobody should play over 30. I feel like the shots need to be spread out. You know, even though Kawhi is the best player on the team, and he reminds me of like any guy in the league who get any shot he wants, so he's going to shoot it. He's going to be more methodical where he gets the ball. You know, low post, you know, that's kind of normally where he likes it. But I think with this squad they're going to do a lot of heavy where guys just whoever got it going. You know, you get the ball, but everybody should be involved. 4 to 5 passes, you know, at least the possession. The Clippers don't normally play that way all the time, but I feel like that's what this squad would need to be, because you're not going to get the burst out of Brad Beal, which, you know, his manager said if you want Brad Beal, you got to let him be Bradley Beal. 5 shots, 6 shots, 7 shots ain't Bradley Beal. He gonna need at least 12 or more. Ask him to sit in the corner. It's not Bradley Beal. So I'm assuming he's gonna touch the ball a lot or need to, and that's what they're gonna have to play, like that Spurs type of basketball from the 2013, 2014, or at least that decade is what they're gonna need to be. So that's what I think about this Clippers team. I feel like that's what they're gonna need to do to really, you know, maximize their potential. With all the weapons they got, the shooting they got, they don't have a lot of depth. So I know me saying, you know, limit the minutes, you know, they don't got a lot of depth back there, but you know, you got Chris Paul, Bogdanovic, you got Batum, you got Brook Lopez. Maybe those guys can play, you know, maybe the guys can get 5-minute spurts as far as the starters, plug some of those guys in, take them out gradually. Maybe you could, you know, still keep a competitive roster lineup on the floor. But I feel like this is the only way they'll work. Got to limit the minutes. Got to be more passing the ball, up to 3-point attempts with this squad. You're going to need to increase the assist, a lot of more motion. Defense will have to be a lot more homed in. They did great last year, but again, you plugging in new parts, it's not going to be as seamless. So let me know what you think, man. You think this is the only way the Clippers team will be successful? We haven't seen them, so obviously I could be totally wrong. But like, comment, subscribe. This is Queese. Through the Scope. Appreciate everybody. I'm out.